Welcome back to PeachTEA, Georgia IT's podcast on transportation engineering and advancement. I'm Kumari Duvuri, and with us today we have Sam Harris. He has been serving for GDOT for over a decade. He is extremely innovative and he has multiple safety initiatives throughout Georgia. He also served as a past president for ITE. He is the recipient of multiple awards, some of them being Marsha Anderson Boehmer's Young Member of the Year Award. He's also recipient of ITE International's Young Member of the Year Award, and most recently he was nominated as 40 Under 40 from Georgia Tech's alumni. So with that, please welcome Sam. Thank you, Sam, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Very excited. And this whole idea is coming together really well. So I appreciate everyone involved. And it doesn't look like an easy feat from the setup side, but this is rather exciting. I think this is great for Georgia section.
So to start with, I just want to congratulate you for being listed in 40 Under 40. Do you want to share any thoughts? How does it feel?
Surreal. Honestly, it's definitely a big achievement that I was not expecting, and I guess typically you don't expect these type of things. I tried to run down like who in the world even like nominated me. I found out it was a professor, not even a professor like through my graduate studies. It's a professor I've worked with a lot more recently, and done some guest lectures for. So it was very nice of him to nominate me, and when I look at the list, I'm still surprised I'm on the list, but I am happy to represent our industry, being the only civil on the list from what I took away from it, and the only PE too. And so happy to represent in that way.
Okay, that's great. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about your career before we dive, too much into the details. Started working in RTOP, and you're the assistant state traffic engineer. Would you like to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. I'll probably back up a little bit further. At Georgia Tech, I knew I wanted to work in I'm very big into cars, and I was like, all right, what can I do with cars? And so there was like two ways I was looking at it. I was like, I can do mechanical engineering, work on car engines. That seemed really cool to me. Or is it something more infrastructure related? I looked at the amount of work that mechanical engineers got to do in the classes, and I was like, maybe I'll do civil. And honestly, I'm glad I went that route. There was a professor at Tech, Dr. Liu, and that was the first class I took with 4600, was just learning how transportation works on a high level, transportation engineering, and I fell in love with it, knowing that yes, this is what I want to do. So that's the first component of it is, are you interested in, do you love what you do or what you're studying, etc. The other piece of it is I've always found myself just wanting to help people. And how can I get a profession that I could do something I love, but also help people on a daily basis? And so the more I learned as I, went through undergrad, working with different professors, taking every transportation class that Tech had to offer. I even applied for the BSMS program just so I could start taking graduate school classes, but not even knowing I wanted to even do a master's or anything. I was just like, no, there's more classes to take on transportation. I want to do it. The kind of connected to me of like, well, if you want to help people, maybe GDOT is the place. A state agency, you can work directly with the public. You can determine I want to start working on this and see where this goes and see how I can help. So I think from that point, it must have been probably around my junior year, I was like, that GDOT's where my target is. At the time though, it was just competitive to get into GDOT. And so I said, well, I should view every option on the table of trying to get in. And so there was Dr. Hunter, one of the great professors at Tech. He said, look, there's a scholarship. And it's not offered a lot, but you should look into it. Duration of them offering it is every 1.5 to 2 years, because what it does is that it gives you a graduate research spot that you will start writing. You'll do a thesis. You're getting paid as a graduate assistant, but at the same time, you also have a guaranteed job at GDOT. I said, yeah, that's great. Let me apply for it. And I think there was a couple of people that applied for it, but the process was easy on the Georgia Tech side. I just interviewed with Dr. Hunter. I know Dr. Hunter well, asked questions. I was able to answer them, more technical. The GDOT interview was different for me. It was towards the end of the semester, And at the time, Todd Long was deputy commissioner, well respected within our industry. He called me up and said, "Hey, let's schedule your interview. What's your availability?" And I said, "Well, I got a couple of finals tomorrow." And he's like, "Great, I'll see you after those." And I said, sure thing, I'll be there. And it was going over to his office, so at the One Georgia Center, going all the way to the executive management floor, and then sitting down in his office and then interviewing with him. Not knowing, expecting what in the world, but it honestly was a great interview because it was him just trying to get to know me and get to know what I'm interested in. I was lucky enough to get that scholarship with that Transportation Engineering of the Future scholarship, and that guaranteed me a spot at GDOT, which to me that was a load off. And honestly, I loved school. I didn't mind going back to grad school or going to grad school and continuing the education, and that was a tremendous experience as well just by itself. And I was able to work on a thesis where I was developing project that I then, whenever I came over to GDOT and started working here in the traffic operations, immediately I'd had some more senior engineers come over and say, "I know you were working on something, let's actually put it out there." And that was really cool to me. Like, that meant a lot too, because typically when you do research, it doesn't always guarantee that you're actually going to have something to go along with that. Yeah. So I started out with the Signal group, because when they originally brought me over, they were like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I know it's traffic operations, and I think I want to do something with signals." Because that's just, you see signals every day, right? And I was always really interested of like, how does it all work, and how are we like setting up the timing, etc. And I don't know if it was around the time the Italian Job came out, but I'm just like, is that real? Like, can we actually do stuff like that? No, not really, just for the audience sake. Not everything you see in the movies is going to be true, but so I worked in signals, and I started actually doing signal timing, and I started doing design work. And another thing that I was able to do was modeling, VISM modeling. I did that a lot in grad school. I took a class for that. It was a great class that Dr. Hunter did that walked you through the HSC modeling, and then it goes into Synchro, then it goes into VISM. So I immediately got put on a big project, the PeachTEA Road project, where we were thinking about doing the bike lanes with the lane configuration. And that was a tremendous experience. So then that rotated me over to RTOP, which was an amazing experience by itself. I mean, that was actually me first time managing like parts of a program and making decisions on parts of a program, and had a great time. Great friends. Some have stayed here, gone, but Esteban, I worked with him a lot on the RTOP program, and Matt came in and became the manager. Then an opportunity came up with safety, and I know we'll probably get into that a little bit here.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, how did that transition happen? What made you interested towards safety?
Yeah, so even when I was in RTOP and doing signal timing, like safety, it was always something on my mind, and accounting for, of course. But I always had, an extra awareness for pedestrian biking. Like my family, like growing up, like my parents, they worked a lot. And so for me to get around, especially to go to friends, like I'm either walking or biking somewhere. And so I think it just kind of raised awareness internally with me of like acknowledging that there are multiple modes, at an intersection. And even when I was in RTOP, I was very much big into what extra stuff can we do for the different users. Not just, it was a big focus on vehicle throughput and et cetera, the goals of the program. But it was actually Scott Zengraf. He came up one day and he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about applying for this job?" And I said, no, I think I'm okay. And I was having the time of my life because I was doing ATS-PM stuff. I was putting together my own metrics, website, and I was like, this is terrific. And then I started remembering some of the other things that that more executive members also mentioned to me, like Todd. He's like, look, about 5 years, then start looking at something new to expand your horizons. And I said, you know what? After talking with a couple people, I was like, I'm going to apply for this position. And I'll be honest, like I did not know the ins and outs of the safety world, but it was fun learning it. It was fun catching up with, new trends, what could be developed in terms of like new projects, etc. But it it presented a lot of opportunity that when I look back on it now, I didn't even know was possible whenever I actually started the position. And that's mainly like safety touches everything.
Yeah.
So I have an opportunity to talk with everybody, and which is really cool. And manage that program, for about 4 or 5 years, and then opportunity came to get into my current position, which was assistant state traffic engineer, and I saw again as just opportunity. The golden thing for me was I wasn't getting away from safety because I felt like I still had some unfinished business in the program.
Yeah.
So I'm still able to work with that team, but now I have multitude of teams that I get to work with. So.
Would you say that your understanding of the industry changed over the course of these years, from like when you started to now?
Yeah, most definitely. The transportation industry, from an engineering standpoint, is actually quite small. Is what I've learned throughout the years, and how things are done is different. People have different approaches. That's the luxury of engineering judgment, but. Working with different people and understanding their approaches with different programs, different program objectives, etc. Being able to learn from those programs. So like when you're able to get into a conversation, for a really good example, like if you get into a conversation with someone that's only worked in safety their entire life, and they're very much focused on those goals and aligned to it, they look at, like, if I come in as a signal timing engineer, like I'm like, well, this is my objective and this is my goal, and then they could think that, okay, well that doesn't line up with me, so we're not on the same page. But really we are. We have the same goals in mind. We're just approaching it differently, and we also need to realize each other in terms of respect, that like we may need a little, give a little, and take a little from each side, which I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned as working through the industry is, how do you work with people, and how do you ultimately get to that common goal?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I might go a little technical here, but tying back to the GDOT podcast, you also did the GDOT Ahead of the Curve podcast, so I'm doing a little marketing for the GDOT as well here.
Great, yeah.
So you mentioned about like how rumble strips, you had those installed and you saw a significant reduction in crashes. Are there any other projects or any other initiatives you worked on which you were able to see actual reduction in crashes or significant impact?
Yeah, no, that's a great example. That was a kind of a paradigm shift for the safety program in general. Originally, very much in the industry when it comes to safety engineering, it was hotspot analysis. We have multiple things going on at this location. Now we need to fix it, and then move to the next location. Then, as I started the safety manager position, you saw that evolve a little bit into more of the systemic type of analysis. Hey, do a blanket project, and you'll see results. Washington State did a really good job of that. They did rumble strip projects, they did cable barrier projects, and you could see the results. So it showed me confidence. But of course, I'm very much data driven. So I said, look, I'll take the systemic approach and I'll add the data element to it. And so what we did, especially for the rumble strip, is we went through and prioritized all the roadways before we did blanket projects across the state. Yeah. And so we were targeting the roadways that had the most need in terms of the crash data standpoint. And immediately after the first year, which is not typical, typically for a safety project, you want to wait maybe 3 years to get the after results, because your first 6 months are definitely a wash. People are getting used to what's going on. But once we started seeing those results, and to this day, like, I could pull the report now, is that we still see double digits every year that since we've done that, we've seen double digit decreases in roadway and lane departure fatalities for the state, which, awesome, great. Other areas that we have seen is definitely on our intersection. Georgia's done an outstanding job looking at innovative intersections. We have a lot of thanks to our ICE policy. We have a lot of thanks to our Complete Streets policy for that. To the point now where it's not a difficult conversation with a local to talk about a roundabout, which is great. And honestly, some locals are coming to us and saying, well, tell me about a roundabout, I think other ones to me standing out going back to like pedestrians is pedestrian hybrid beacons. From Georgia alone, we like to look at national stats, but I also like to look at what Georgia has, what we've seen on our roadways. We've seen up to 86% decrease in fatal and serious injury crashes just from pedestrian hybrid beacons. Wow. Which is definitely a target area for us in the state because really the Southeast, we have a pedestrian crash problem, and they're chaotic crashes. What I mean by that, they will pop up and they may never happen again in that location. So it is typically hard to build projects off of that. But yeah, I think, especially with our roundabouts, now with more of our systemic projects, for instance, a location that people maybe use every single day is the 75 to 85 loop, coming in on the top end of the connector. Many people probably didn't even really notice much of a difference on it, but we had a safety project we actually put together quite quickly that we actually changed the embankment and did some signage and striping differences. And we saw I think it was 65% reduction in crashes just by doing that.
Wow.
So small things also are having a big impact.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, it's just, how we look at roadways and how they were meant to perform at one time and now have changed because of the context of the land use. Coming back in and actually doing changes like that. Peachtree Road, for instance, that was a really big project I mentioned earlier that I did the VISM modeling for. We have seen by redoing the configuration on that from the no turn lane, etc., and adding in the two-way left turn lane and reducing it by a lane, we saw close to 50% reduction in crashes on that and a 12% reduction in travel time. So those are the typical projects that definitely shine, and we like to tell people about. So
yeah, that's amazing. So you're involved in many such initiatives, like you're speaking about the infrastructure related or like safety focused, and you're also involved in like many initiatives like the Let's See 43 Safe Driving Summit. I actually attended one of those and I still have the keychain with me. It's so impactful. And also you have the Keep Georgia Safe. And so those are, like interaction with public, trying to make them more aware of safety. And then you also see the data side of things. You're spearheading, upgrading new metric, making GDOT, staying ahead of the curve with the new metric.
Nice.
So among all the initiatives you're involved in, what do you think you find the most fulfilling?
Wow, yeah, I think ultimately, my first answer is going to be just seeing any type of reduction in fatal crashes. Everyone deserves to be able to get on the road, either walking, biking, or driving their vehicle, and make it back to their loved ones. There's a lot that we do as engineers, and it's always geared towards finding solutions to make things safer. And when I look at the numbers each year, like for last year, there was some odd around 200 something people in terms of reduction. I look at those 200 people at least made it home to their family. Mm-hmm. And to me that honestly means a lot because I know I'm not responsible for all that. Don't get me wrong. I have a very small part of that. But knowing that I have a small part of that means an awful lot to me. And sometimes you do get the feedback on it. And I still have it on my work phone. I have a voicemail from a citizen, and they had something nice to say because I changed something and it made it safer, but it also made it operate better as well. And they took the time and they called me. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to pick up, but I'm kind of glad I didn't because they left a terrific voicemail. And it was just so self-validating of like, yes, this is something that helped her community, and ultimately helped me in terms of validating what I'm doing. That's the number one answer. But I do have to sneak in. I mean, all the stuff that we're doing with education and outreach right now is really big and really important to me. And I get to work with, going back to the safety and working with different groups, I get to work with a lot of other groups more closely than I ever have. Like the GDOT comms team, we've partnered on a lot of these initiatives, and it's been outstanding working with them because you get insight on how things are done. Because I always joke when I get to them, I'm like, hey, I've written something up. but it's engineering, and you should probably look at this and make it more to where people can understand it, the everyday person to understand it. But when we did these driving summits, and I've been to almost all of them, there's a few that I wasn't able to get to, but of course there's some that stand out. But we did one in Alpharetta where we had the whole school assembly in the gym. They had a gym big enough to hold it, and this was close to 2,000 kids.
Wow.
And me from like 10 years ago, I've been scared to death to get on the floor and talk to these students. But now it's becoming more natural for me. But getting out there and talking with them, getting out there and like talking with the community, I think it's critically important because you have campaigns such as like Smokey the Bear. Like, all right, Smokey the Bear, it's a very successful campaign. Everyone knows don't start a fire in the forest, right? When it comes to safety education, for our roadways, like there's a lot going on, but there's not one big focal point. That's really what I'm trying to gear everyone towards. But ultimately, if I have one kid that walks away from that summit and decides that, yes, I'm not going to drive distracted, and that potentially saved their life, all the summits were worth it in my mind. Just one kid. But I know we're impacting a lot more. We're probably getting close to 15,000 kids that we've gotten in front of.
Yeah.
And some communities that really needed it, and we were able to act really fast. I mean, I think one that stands out to me was Lakeside. They had 4, I think it might have been potentially 5, fatal crashes with students in their school. And I saw the paper AJC, and I looked at it, and I was like, whoa, like there's a lot going on at the school. I immediately called up Mike Letzikirchen, who was our partner in this Safe Driving Summit, and said, we need to be at the school. He's like, I'm already ahead of you. I've already talked to the principal. I said, great, when can we actually get in? He's like, we'll be in 3 weeks. And we came in and we did a fireside chat with the whole school. And it meant a lot to them because it was the first time I really ever saw that students actually were standing up in front of their peers and asking questions. How can we be safer? Like, what are the things you're seeing that are getting, that result in these type of crashes? So, safety education is big. And if I can, our programs like the Keep Georgia Safe one, we're going all the way down to kindergarten. If I can instill in kindergartners that driving distracted is bad, then they're going to grow up with that. So I think ultimately in the long run, we're going to see some reductions in our state because of these programs.
It'll stay with them.
Yep.
I might get a little technical here. I'm sure majority of our audience would be engineers.
Sure.
So I'm sure they'll be fine. All the summits and the awareness campaigns, everything you're doing, those are related to the human behavior. Going back to like fundamentals of safety class, they talk about 3 different factors that will contribute to the crash. Human, roadway, and the vehicle. So human, you're taking care of that through all these campaigns. And then roadway, you obviously have all the infrastructure projects that you're working on. Would you like to speak a little bit on the vehicle side of things?
No, I mean, great question, because it also hits on the safe system approach. It's shared responsibility amongst different stakeholders, and one of those stakeholders and one of those principles is safe vehicles. And from our field, as engineers that are trying to work on the infrastructure and getting more into the outreach portion, we don't typically have too much coordination with like vehicle OEMs and talking with them. I mean, we did the tour of Kia not long ago as a technical tour for Georgia section, which I thought was really fun. I need to set up one for the Hyundai plant. That one I heard is going to be a great one too.
Might
but
be a little far.
Yeah, a little far. Yeah. We'll have to like rent a bus and then we can watch movies on the way down. I think that from a vehicle standpoint, I love what I've seen in terms of advancements on some of the what seems like small things, but actually have a huge impact. Like for instance, lane assist. That's roadway departure, lane departure, crashes. And typically when you have those crashes, they are high severity type of crashes. And so by having that, and I've driven in a vehicle, mine doesn't have it, but I've driven in a vehicle where it will give you prompts or give you vibration in the steering wheel, etc., and let you know. And I think that we definitely owe to the vehicle manufacturers for putting that safety equipment in for some of those reductions that we've seen, in fatal crashes. I think also what's really interesting to me is the impairment, and distraction part of it. I was at AASHTO spring meeting this year, and it was up in Connecticut. And the Connecticut commissioner, I think he might be the secretary, is what they call it there, but he actually has a car, it's a DOT fleet car, that is equipped with breath monitoring for alcohol. And ultimately, in the passage of IIJA, there was money to be spent here in terms of doing the research. Well, essentially, I was able to sit in the vehicle and look at it. It was a Mach-E. It was really cool. It has a sensor that's underneath the dash. And so as you're breathing, it's taking that breath in and then analyzing it. Mm-hmm. And so when he handed me some hand sanitizer, he's like, rub it on your hands and then blow into the sensor. And then there's a tablet, because it was aftermarket, but there was a tablet right next to it. And then it showed me the spikes. And ultimately, what that does is you can no longer use the vehicle. Not in an unsafe manner, just shut down and you're trying to figure out how to stop the vehicle. But it essentially won't let you start it. But what I was also impressed with is he did the same thing in the passenger seat, rubbed his hand together, blew it out. And it did register, but it didn't register enough. So meaning that you could be transporting someone under the influence, but you as a driver are still okay. So I think as long as we keep looking at those type of technologies and further enhance those, I think that's going to be tremendous. And I think it's going to have a huge impact on what we do. And then the other piece of it, you have the connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, those have, components of how, especially in level of autonomy, they've been around for a little bit, going back to the lane assist, etc., until you get up to that level 5. But the auto braking, detection, alerting people if you're about to, strike something or somebody, those obviously play a big role. But I think ultimately the biggest game changer, maybe not right off the bat, is the VTOLs, is the air taxis that have a lot of traction from what I can tell at the moment. I'm not heavily involved in that, especially on the DOT side, but I've been to a conference where they talked about it, and definitely in Europe, and it looks like in Asia, they're starting to do more test runs of this. But essentially, think of it as buildings, in downtown, midtown, they're all going to start having helipads. Yeah. And you're going to be able to get on Uber, something like that, a rideshare app. You're going to be able to click it. It's going to send it over to you. It's driverless, and then you get in it, and then it's going to take you across the city, and then land on another building, and then you're there. So from us standpoint, of course, there's an air safety component there, but from a roadway safety, if I have less people using the roadway, then that's a positive for me in a sense that it's from a safety standpoint, So those type of things definitely is what I see from the vehicle manufacturers, and but also even reaching out to advancements even in the post-crash care standpoint, going from IV to blood transfusion is really big as well. And we from numbers I've seen so far, it is shown that it can reduce fatalities within crashes by 30%. And that's just in the medical field. So siloed out the vehicle manufacturer, now silo out the medical field, their advancements are contributing, going back to that safe system approach.
So you work with a lot of different agencies. It can be MPOs, ARC, and you also work with counties, cities. So how do you ensure collaboration among all these different agencies?
That's what some would argue is a fun part of the job, but also can be a challenging part of the job. I always look at it as an opportunity to find a new partnership and to build upon it, and because this probably isn't going to be the last time you work with this local entity, MPO, whatever the case may be. So, number one, just listen. When you go into a meeting for the first time and you're trying to work with somebody, listen what they have to say. And I've found, and then take this in your personal life and in your work life, a lot of times when people talk, they'll walk away from that conversation thinking, that was the best conversation I ever had, And so, after this, the amount of talking I'm doing, I'm this is the best podcast I think you're ever going to do. But listening in and making them feel heard is one of the most important things, I think. I think next up is finding common ground. Now that you listened, you've written down what the problem is. You've already kind of done your homework on understanding of what you think could solve such problem, if that's what you're coming to the table with and working with someone. That's typically it. You're typically all trying to solve a problem. But understand what is the impact to the potential solutions that you're coming up with? I think that's critically important, because I think it's easy to throw something out there and, okay, that works. Let's go do it. Like, okay, well, how does it work? What impact? What type of communication do we need to do? That type of stuff. And also understanding their goals and objectives. Understanding that, just getting to know them, I think is critically important. And bringing everybody that needs to be to the table at the table, but no more than what can feed a pizza. Mm-hmm. So like that was a rule I've read up on, was that you don't want too many people at the table. So if it's too many that you can't feed one pizza to, then you need to break it up in terms of those conversations. But oftentimes when I meet with a local, it's or an MPO or whatever the case may be, it's very much an engaging conversation that we're all just trying to solve a problem. And you definitely have some more strong-willed, personalities that can be in a room, but you have to learn how to work with those personalities more so than work with an agency per se. Mm-hmm. Big thing, listen and ultimately find common ground. Just acknowledge walking into the meeting that you're not going to get everything and they may not get everything. But if you can make it all work, then obviously that's what you'll try to go for. So
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I want to shift gears a little and ask you about professional growth, career-related advice. I want to hear from you on mentors who had greatest impact and any great advice you got from them.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with just my grandfather. He graduated from tech. He was an industrial engineer, and he was always in my ear, go to tech. I don't care what engineer you are, but go to tech. And ultimately, I got there and found my niche and what I wanted to do. But I owe a lot to him in terms of a mentor. Just getting me in that mindset. Getting you in the mindset of like how an engineer thinks, and that's what I love about the STEAM camp that we're doing with ITE and GDOT and Grady with other stakeholders. Is that kids they have this kind of like idea of what engineering is, but then when you actually give them the tools to learn from it, then they get ever so curious and they keep going with it. And I think that's what my grandfather provided to me, was always trying to look for opportunity as a teaching moment, or to bring information to me to be like, learn from this type of thing. From a professional standpoint, there's a lot of people that I owe in terms of a mentor or just as a leader. Look at our commissioner with Commissioner McMurray. He is a leader, definition. And being able to, more recently, being able to work with him on some different things and hearing kind of like how he goes through a problem and understanding that, like, I get why he's been our commissioner for so long. Like, he's really good at those things I talked about earlier, listening, trying to understand what the problem is, trying to be helpful, and trying to just find common ground, and ultimately, moving forward. But he's also can be very decisive, and he knows, he has that experience to say, like, I've seen this before. This is how it will happen last time. This is how we're going to move forward with it and provide that. So, and just kind of go down the chain. Andrew's been instrumental for me as now the deputy commissioner. He came over. I worked with him on the PeachTEA project whenever he was over in the chief's office, and then he came over and became the state traffic engineer. But got to work with him a lot then and learned a lot, from him. And John Hibbert is another big one that's been in the industry for a while, and a lot of people can point to him as someone that's been mentor as a leader as well. And Alan, has been really big for me. He was, honestly, besides Todd Long, like, he was one of the first people I met from GDOT. And it was in a poster session that we were doing, and he came up and he's like, looked at my poster, he's like, you should work for GDOT. And I was like, oh, I am going to work for GDOT. And he's like, terrific. And he gave me his card and he's like, I'll see you soon. And I ended up, that was the group I worked for, was Alan's group. And that was hard, going back to earlier of like switching over from safety. Like, it was hard for me to break away from his group, because I think he's a tremendous leader, and not only for just GDOT, but just for the industry as well. And actually, I went in his office and I was very open with him. Like, this is my decision. And he was very helpful. Like, he could have easily been like, no, you need to stay right where you are. There's no benefit of doing that. But he did. He walked me through benefits, and he's like, it's ultimate your decision, and that was really helpful for me. But yeah, I mean, I've already mentioned Todd, but there are many more. Even from the ITE space, I mean, Jody is a big one for me. Like, and even past presidents, getting to know them better, like Dwayne, and there's too many to count for. So I'll stop now before I try to keep thinking of all of them. So there was one person I want to make sure as well. I mean, because he was a staple, similar to Alan. Who was Scott. I mean, he obviously, like, being underneath him in a safety program, and for him to like take a chance on me, in terms of like, hey, I understand you don't know everything, but that was really helpful for me, and continues to this day also to be someone I can lean on certain things. So
that's great. Going back a little bit, so if you were to give an advice to your younger self, would you do something different? And tying to that question, anything for the young engineers who are trying to grow in their career, who are in the first few years of their engineering?
Yeah, I honestly can say that I wouldn't do anything different. I think that it's worked out well for me, and I think I'm right where I need to be in terms of my position professionally and personally in my personal life. If there was one thing I would change, I probably would have done more study exchange program. I had a great time doing that at Tech when I went and studied at UCL in London. And looking back on that, I'm like, man, I should have done more. So that would have been one area for sure. But my advice to young engineers, take every opportunity that you get. It may not seem like something interesting, but showing initiative and showing that that you can do something and then be successful at that, the more that you can build on that, that's only going to help you professionally, but it's also going to help showcase your skills within your organization. And you never know what those opportunities can lead to. And so it's that, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And don't be afraid to fail. It is perfectly fine to fail, as long as it's not something, catastrophic. But, taking a project and trying something new, from a data standpoint, methodology or something along those lines, perfectly fine. Or we go out and we do something, we go out and put in, innovative intersection. We put ourselves out there, in terms of engineers, and we say, look, I think this is going to work. All the data points to it's going to work. It works other places. I go and put it at this location. And that all is extremely correct, but in the context of that location, it just doesn't work for some reason. Yeah. Don't get discouraged. Try it again. It'll get on track. And that leads to challenging yourself. Yeah. Always challenge yourself. Don't feel content. If you're feeling like you have a little bit too much extra time, and because you're getting better and better at your job, find something, do something new, type of deal. So,
yeah, thank you. And then I also want to ask you you do work through GDOT and also through ITE, and you're also part of the National Safety Council. How do you maintain work-life balance? How do you manage your time?
Excellent question, because time management is just something that's immensely difficult. Like, it doesn't matter where you are in an organization, time management is critical. And so what I personally like about working for GDOT is because I feel like my goals, in terms of like professionally, but also personally, have good alignment. Meaning that when I'm done with my workday, I know that the people I work with respect that, and I'm going to go spend time with my family. Mm-hmm. I also make, there's a list in my head, and it's always there. What's most important to you? My family is most important to me, especially my two small girls. And I don't want to miss out on anything. So I will make sure I'm there for them, for whatever they need, in terms, even the small stuff, because I feel like the small stuff is the stuff that matters. Like for yesterday, is my oldest daughter's open house. And, easily, like, someone could think of that and be like, okay, I have something important, and, I got to do it. And those things do happen. They happen to me too. But, I thought ahead, and I was like, I know this is this day. I'm going to go ahead and block it off. So I'm there. I'm doing it. that type of thing. So I think that's the big thing, is just going back into prioritizing your time and making sure that you know what your line is, right? Like, once you shut your computer down and you put your work phone to the side, like, you have a good discipline of not going and opening it back up. Unless, like, again, like, big projects, I understand, deadlines happen, like, but for the vast majority of the time, like, you go enjoy your personal life. I tell all my employees this as well. It's like, work is not everything.
Yeah.
We have one life, go live it, that type of thing. So ultimately, I know I have a work environment and a boss and bosses above him that definitely value a person's personal time and time with family, etc. So that's really important to me. So
yeah. No, that's great. That's valuable advice. I think we spent a good bit. I just have a couple of closing thoughts. So where would you like to see, like 5 to 10 years, where would you like to see the safety growing?
Yeah, I think staying innovative, I think, is big. I think from a data analytics standpoint, I always like to joke, in the data world in transportation right now, it's the wild, wild west, because you have so many different data sets that are available out there, and no one has like kind of connected them all together in a sense. For instance, like probe vehicle data. I know Purdue University has done some of this, but like harsh braking, when we first started looking at that, it's like, okay, well, how does that correlate to these type of crashes? And when can we look at trends in harsh braking and say that because of that correlation, we're going to see an increase in crashes if we see this harsh braking get over a certain threshold? Those type of things really, I think, are at the forefront of everything that we're doing. And you're seeing that actually change in industry right now, because data is becoming ever more accessible in how we look at it. And so being able to tie these things together to make justification for safety projects that don't even use crash data, that's really, really powerful. Because then it goes back to earlier when I mentioned pedestrian bike crashes, very chaotic, very random in nature. If we do not have ways that we can justify these type of projects or find where to put these projects to help reduce, those fatalities, we're stuck, And so having these data sets, I think, is really big. And my vision for Safety 2 in the next 5 to 10 years is we continue marching forward with our Vision Zero. Like, I know there's plenty of people that think that is not a possibility. And, I don't think it's a possibility in the next 5 years. It likely will not be a possibility in the next 10 years. But I think as practitioners, we wake up every day with the mindset that if I can do something today that helps get us closer to that goal, ultimately you're setting up success for generations. It may not happen in your generation, but it definitely can happen in the next generation, especially with some of the emerging technology pieces that we had earlier. If we go fully autonomous with a fleet, our fatalities are going to take a nosedive. It's going to be great. But it's also, other places in the world have shown success with this and with the principles, especially with the safe system. So I think that's what I'm most excited about in the next 5 to 10 years, and where my mindset is for safety as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. What type of legacy would you like to leave in the transportation industry?
I think it's just somebody that cares, someone that wants to help people. I think ultimately I'd be perfectly fine, if like 50 years from now someone's like, oh, you remember that guy? And he's like, oh yeah, he cared about what he did. I think that would be perfectly fine with me. Like, I would take that as the ultimate compliment of, like, because if I come to work, I try to do my best. I'm trying to make a difference. I wanted to showcase that, like, I really am trying to change things. Like, I'm not just coming to get a paycheck, not just coming to, learn something new. I really, truly want to change things for the better. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for everything. Do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, I just appreciate it. I appreciate your getting everything together for this. I appreciate being asked for the opportunity, and wish you luck on your future podcast as well. So
thank you. Thank you for doing this with us. It's always inspiring to hear from you. So thank you for doing everything you do.